it's all over and done with, you know.
36 hours later, Todd Kelly was dead, and his house was swarming with police. Authorities were able to determine that Todd had died around 3:15 a.m. that same morning. Mike McClelland of the Steuben County, Indiana Sheriff's Department took charge of the investigation. He immediately noticed that the crime scene had been tampered with. It was obvious that the body had been cleaned up and then moved into the living room from another part of the house.
Upon further checking of the house, we noticed that there were no sheets on the bed in the bedroom. We also discovered a spot where there was blood on the floor in the bedroom by the bathroom door. It was very hard to find this at first because it had been wiped clean. We believed that the sheets were used to move the body and to clean up the crime scene.
Oddly, the bed sheets had never been found. In the yard, police came across several cigarette butts. They matched the brand smoked by Mahfouz Huck. Authorities also discovered that Todd's car had been wiped clean of fingerprints and the keys were missing. They theorized the killer had planned to remove the body from the scene.
We discovered that the headlights of the car didn't work. I believe that the suspect was going to try and use that vehicle to transport the body. I think his efforts were foiled by the fact that he didn't know that the car wasn't working.
Police were convinced that the person who held the key to the investigation was Mahfouz Huck, who had now disappeared. They began to track his movements around the time of the murder. Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the night of the murder, 2 eyewitnesses claimed to have seen Mahfouz walking barefoot in the direction of Todd's house. At virtually that same moment, Christy Mutzfield and Todd Kelly were in bed at his house.
When we were in bed, I heard noises outside.
What's that?
Because I really thought that something was outside. And Todd said it was probably just a dog, because he had a dog tied up out back, and he said it was nothing to worry about. It was getting kind of late, and I told him I had to go home, because I hadn't really been home for quite a while, and I knew my father would be upset, so he left, and he said he was going to stay up all night, and he wanted to get something to drink.
Christy says that at 2:30 a.m. she drove Todd into town. She believes Mahfouz Huck entered the house while they were gone.
We drove back to his house, and said goodbye in the car, and he gave me a kiss.
Forget to come back? No. Don't forget.
Christy says she dropped Todd off at approximately 3 a.m. The coroner determined that Todd was murdered within 15 minutes. At 4:30 a.m., Mahfouz Huck called Christy from his parents' house 10 miles away.
Morning.
2 hours later, Mahfouz showed up in her bedroom. According to Christy, she broke off the relationship for good.
I've been thinking that maybe it would just be better if we didn't see each other anymore.
Great.
Foos.
You're happy.
It kind of scared me, the tone of voice he had. I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "I hope you have a happy life." And then he walked out.
At first glance, the case seemed open and shut. Mahfouz Huck, in an apparent fit of jealous rage, had murdered Todd Kelly. The authorities dismissed Christy Mutzfeld as a possible suspect. But then the seemingly simple case took a surprising turn. Todd Kelly's family is convinced that there are inconsistencies in Christy's story. While they do not believe Christy was an active participant in the murder, they do question whether she has been completely honest.
Christie's story is not the way that it happened. According to all the evidence that we have dug up and the evidence that the police had, there is no way that she was not there. She had to be there during the murder. When Todd and Christy returned home, they probably started making love, and Mahfouz waited in the bushes saw what was happening, that's when his jealousy took over. He could no longer control himself and decided to finish the act. When Christy said she heard the noise, it was Mafus coming in the door. I do believe at that point, Mafus convinced her to help him cover up the murder. We do believe also at that point that Christy did help move the body. There was no drag marks on the carpet whatsoever. Mafus was not a large man. Todd was a good-sized fellow. It would have took a lot of strength to pick him up bodily and carry him out to the other room by himself.
I don't know why they want to blame me. I mean, I know Todd and I had our hardships, and I hurt him and he hurt me, and I know that upset them, but I don't know why they're blaming me.
The possibility of an accomplice is pure speculation at this point in time. There's no hard evidence, and by the evidence given at the scene, it appears that he acted alone.
Todd died approximately at 3:15 in the morning. It amazes me how a man alone could clean up that entire room, clean up the entire mess that he made, move the body, entirely clean the body, and also walk all the way back home in the amount of time that they had reported receiving another phone call. He had to have some help.
It's our belief that there's a good possibility he could have made it to Hamilton and back walking. There's also the possibility, if it took him longer than what he thought at the crime scene, that he could have called someone to come and get him.
The Kelly family believes that Christy is the person who gave Mafuz a ride home. In addition, they question her statement about what happened when she returned to Todd's house at 7 in the morning. She claims she did not immediately notice Todd's body, even though it was lying right by the front door. A point which even Sheriff McClellan concedes is unlikely.
We're not accusing Christy. The only problem is we feel that there's some inconsistencies in things that she has told us. We've asked Christy for a polygraph examination, and she has refused to do that.
All we want from her is the truth, and the whole truth, and we do not believe we're getting that from her. We do feel that possibly she could help the case out by stepping forward and telling the whole story the way it should be told.
Forgot about it.
Todd's family, they
So you can look at the front of the box closely.
they've been
So you can
very
check the
hard on me.
frigging tree. There.
They harassed me.
So you can take that.
Unjustly
Then-
accused me of everything,
See?
and when you let me go to his funeral,
You can see if you've gone wrong by looking up the tree.
and it's been very accusing,
Yeah?
and I realize
Oh.
they're hurting, and
See,
and I don't think
because-
that they realize that I'm hurting too,
Oh,
and then everything that they say, and every time they
shadow.
accuse me of something, it just hurts more.
see? Can you see?
I don't know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, just go across and check. That's what I was thinking. If you use that, then you can, thing. I found it before. I forgot that I had it, that electronic set.
Next, the incredible tale of a primitive sea creature, America's own Loch Ness monster, said to live in the depths of Lake Champlain. Centuries ago, along the shores of what is now Lake Champlain in upstate New York and Vermont, the Iroquois paid homage to the spirit of a great horned serpent said to rule the murky depths of the lake. The fabled sea monster which captivated the Iroquois still fascinates people today. In fact, in the past 25 years, no less than 100 eyewitnesses claim to have seen the Lake Champlain sea monster, known affectionately as Champ. Sandra Mancy, a successful antiques dealer, grew up near Lake Champlain. When she was a child, her grandfather teased her with fearsome tales of the legendary creature.
Grandfather told us all about Champ, and when we would go fishing, he would say to us, if you don't sit down and behave in the boat, I'm going to throw you over and Champ's going to eat you. Of course, we didn't believe a word of it. It wasn't anything that we really believed in. It was just a threat of grandfather's. And so I just really kind of dismissed it for years and years as just one of grandfather's big stories.
In July of 1977, Sandra took this remarkable photograph, which fueled worldwide speculation and, not surprisingly, controversy. Sandra will never forget the day she saw Champ. That summer, Sandra, her 2 children, and her fiancé Tony were on vacation near Lake Champlain.
And we stopped at this one place and we went down over a bank, and the children were down further on the beach having a great time, and Tony decided to go back to the car and get the camera because we hadn't taken any pictures of the children, and they had their shoes off and they're waiting down on the shore. And I'm sitting there by myself, and I'm looking out at the lake, and the lake started churning. My first thought was scuba divers, but then it's too much. It would be too big of a group of scuba divers, but then fish. There's some very large sturgeon and big walleyes in Champlain, so I thought, well, it's a very, very large school of fish. And then the head and the neck came up out of the water, and then the back. And I watched it turn its head and neck and look around, and when it first came up, its mouth was open, and I could see water coming out of the mouth. But I don't remember any eyes or any details like that. Just the head and the neck and the back. And it's really, really serene. And I'm feeling like I shouldn't be there. This is something I should not be witnessing. Because to me, this thing should have been extinct 30 million years ago. And even then, I'm not frightened. I'm in total awe and very calm. And then Tony came back and he saw it.
Heidi, get out of the water! Get out of the water right now! Come on! Get out!
And he got all panicky, screaming and hollering.
Get up here! I don't know! Come on, get up here! Sandra, do you
And he
see that thing?
screamed at me to get back there. So he helped me up the bank, and when he did, he handed me the camera, and he turned around, and it's still there. I picked up the camera and shook one shot.
When Sandra had the film developed, she was certain she had taken a picture of Champ. She was equally certain that no one would believe that the photo was real. She threw away the negatives and, fearing public ridicule, kept the picture hidden for the next 2 years. Finally, in the autumn of 1979, Sandra had the snapshot blown up into an 8x10-inch print. At the urging of friends, she contacted Joe Zarzinski, who spent more than a decade researching a book on the Lake Champlain sea creature.
Well, here.
It's a great picture. When I opened it up, I thought it was too good to be true. After putting in so many years of researching, field work, and then finally there was this color photograph that clearly depicted a head and neck sticking out of the water. And it was almost as if all my Christmases came to me at once.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
That was at the north end of the lake.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, I know where it is all now.
Part of the lake where she had taken the photograph. Joe sent the print to the University of Arizona to be analyzed.
We digitized it and ran all sorts of computer enhancement techniques. We were looking like for pulleys or ropes or anything like that, superimpositions, but we found no evidence of hoaxing, and we concluded that that object, whatever it is, was there in the lake at that estimated distance. It wasn't any sort of superimposition.
When the photograph was released, it caused a media sensation. The New York Times and and Life magazine carried the story. Many were reminded of another, far more well-known creature, the legendary Loch Ness Monster of Scotland. Some speculated that if such creatures did exist, perhaps they were prehistoric animals which had somehow managed to survive.
Well, the object in the Mansi photograph resembled a plesiosaur, which is an aquatic reptile from the Cretaceous about 60-70 million years ago, long neck and flippers. It resembles that, but that's a long time to have survived.
Another theory maintains that Champ might be a zeuglodon, a snake-like whale extinct for 20 million years. Or perhaps Champ was simply a lake sturgeon, which had been known to reach 7 feet in length. No matter the explanation, the fact remains that following the publication of the Mansi photograph, dozens of eyewitness sightings were reported. Near dusk on July 7, 1988, Walter Tappan, his wife Sandy, and daughter Heidi went out on Lake Champlain with a camcorder. The previous day, Walter and Heidi believed they had seen Champ. The Tappans were probably 10 to 12 miles from the area where Sandra Mansi had taken her photograph 11 years earlier.
It was a quiet night, just as still as glass, like the first night had been. And I was full of anticipation and excitement, but also not necessarily expecting anything. And for about 10 minutes, we saw nothing. And then Sandy, curiously enough, Sandy says,
I think I see one. Get the camera, honey, get the camera.
I was manning the camera all the time. And when you look through the viewfinder, you can't see much. And so we had quite a time there where my daughter and my wife were saying, there, look, look. And I'd say, where? I can't see anything.
Walter and his family believe that they saw not just one creature, but several. What he photographed is visible in the center portion of the screen.
We saw frequently a series of small humps coming up, breaking the surface, gliding along, and then subsiding again. But we watched these creatures for 45 minutes. And at one particular moment, they spotted, Heidi and I think spotted one not far from the boat, at the most 50 or 60 feet from the boat. And then began the footage for about 20 or 30 seconds of seeing these humps glide along, first 2, then 3, then 4, and then suddenly 5, all in a row, stretching out about 20 feet.
At one time I saw, I would say 5 in the community, but throughout the night I went on for about an hour. I had probably, I would say, 7 different sightings of them. And then I became very worried about it because my husband had seen it the night before, and now we see it again. I thought maybe this is some sort of nesting site, but I didn't know what it was, and I kept trying to make sense out of it.
It's bigger. It's even bigger. There are more humps.
So we have a sun deck on the back. So I decided to climb up and stand on the sun deck, and I just scanned the water like that, back and forth, scanning. And lo and behold, I saw one of those Brahma-bull humps coming along the water, and then all of a sudden, the neck and the head came up, and it looked right at me. I will never forget it. And so, as I said, it just happened like that. All of a sudden, there's this lead hump, like the Brahma-bull hump. All of a sudden, just like this, just so gracefully, just like that, looked out, looked at me, and I was screaming with excitement, which I wish I wasn't doing, because it went down a little, came back, and then very gracefully, very slowly, went back down into the water, just like that. And this was the movement. It was up and down.
There was no time for me to get the camera and refocus. I'd give anything now to have that on footage, because what Sandy saw was, of course, an astounding thing. This creature looking at us and lifting its head out of the water. And what it did was to confirm absolutely for all of us that what we had seen was Champ.
Scientific opinion is varied, but at least one expert believes that what Walter Tappan photographed was nothing more than a school of fish. Perhaps he is right, but who can explain the Mansi photograph or the hundreds of eyewitness accounts recorded through the centuries.
Do I believe Champ exists? You'll never convince me of anything else. You can call it Champ, you can call it a monster, you can call it a Zeuglodon, you can call it a plesiosaur, you can call it anything you want. I'm telling you, in that lake, there is something extraordinary.
I think there's a good chance that there's something in Lake Champlain that still remains unknown to zoology. Something large, something unknown. And for that reason, if for no other, we should continue trying to find out what it is.
When we return, the story of a young man who claims that he has lost almost all memory of his past. Imagine waking up one day with no sense of who you are, where you are, or where you came from. That is exactly what happened to a mysterious young man named Pierre, who seems to be suffering from near total amnesia. His odyssey began when he awoke in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by the fog and mist of a forgotten past.
Those first few minutes, you're literally nothing, and you feel so empty. It's very lonely and painful to be empty. I'm so sorry if the voice shakes and I stutter more than usual, but it's not nice to talk about these things.
It was a chilly, windswept morning in May of 1992. Pierre says he inexplicably found himself along a deserted stretch of coastline with a blue duffel bag beside him. Feeling weak, hungry, and terribly confused, Pierre recalls that he made his way to the road, Highway 1, leading south from Big Sur, California.
So I started walking, and as I came upon, well, you could call it a village if you're polite, but it's a very small place. It's called Gagorda. I saw the sign.
Pierre spotted a telephone, his first chance to obtain help. Only then did it dawn on him that he had no one to call.
Then I realized I couldn't phone anybody. And that's when I realized that I didn't know anybody, including me.
Alone and distraught, Pierre searched through his belongings. Tucked into one of his shirts was a crumpled piece of paper, a library card from the Boston Public Library. Handwritten on the back of the card was a name, April, Pierre. Pierre says now that it was not his signature.
Well, it's struck me that, hey, that's the name of whoever owns that card, and that must be me. It's in my belongings, it's with my socks, it's with my shirts, it's with my things.
Pierre claims he was plagued by hazy memories of San Diego, California, 400 miles to the south. With just $17 in his pocket, he set out hitchhiking. 3 days later, Pierre arrived in San Diego. He wandered through the streets of the city, searching for a recognizable landmark.
I was not so much frightened anymore as angry, because I was so sure everything would come back. But I saw downtown and said nothing. I looked at the building and they meant nothing. I was so sure this city would bring everything back, and it did not. And I walked the streets of the city for a long time.
Pierre felt he was hovering on the brink of madness. Finally, a sympathetic bus driver gave him a free ride to the St. Vincent de Paul homeless shelter.
We've had cases of people pretending they didn't know who they were. But Pierre was very unique in that sometimes in the other cases, the residents are after something. They want to kind of use staff to get some needs met of theirs. And that wasn't Pierre's case at all. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't even ask for help.
In the past 6 months, Pierre has undergone a battery of physical and psychological examinations. Doctors theorize realize he may be suffering from trauma-induced amnesia.
The doctor here at the facility did screen Pierre and found no obvious physical causes or reasons for the amnesia. And he did say that the case was very unique from his perspective in that it's very rare to have somebody lose their long-term memory for as long as Pierre has.
While at St. Vincent's, Pierre began the painstaking search for clues to his past. Soon, fragments of his former self began to emerge. Pierre apparently has considerable knowledge of physics, advanced math, and computers, and even claims he knows how to fly an airplane. Pierre also discovered that he possesses some artistic ability, but other clues only serve to deepen the mystery. In the blue duffel bag is a neck brace. Pierre believes that he may have been injured while playing hockey. He also claims that he can type 85 words a minute. Pierre also found that he has a talent for music and learned how to play the guitar in just a few hours. Now, every morning, Pierre travels to Balboa Park in San Diego, where he earns spending money as a street entertainer.
Well, it gives me an identity, for one thing. I'm a musician. Now I'm something. I don't feel empty now because I keep myself very, very busy.
Hoping to add detail to Pierre's fragmented memories, Unsolved Mysteries arranged for him to consult with a police sketch artist. In the session, 2 portraits were created. Portraits of people who may have been significant in Pierre's past. The first was a man who Pierre believes is his cousin Luke, nicknamed Curly. According to Pierre, Luke is an auto mechanic who once fixed the tour bus of a well-known group of Louisiana musicians, the Preservation Hall Jazz Band. The second drawing was a woman who Pierre believes was once his employer. Her name is Carol. Pierre recalls that they worked together in a business office. But for every memory which returns, Pierre says there are literally thousands which remain buried and forgotten.
I just want to find out what the past is, if I can. If I try to remember something too hard, I get a beautiful headache that I wouldn't want to inflict on my worst enemy. And most recently, like those last few days, if I try not to remember something that's coming back, I get the same thing. Like some lumps of things come back that are not especially pleasant. And if I try to block them out, I get the same kind of headache. It's a hazy, piercing pain that engulfs the whole head. It's not something nice. It's something I can do without.
Update. On the night of our broadcast, a viewer in Canada called our telecenter to say that the young man had once worked for his wife and that his name is, in fact, Pierre April. Pierre soon learned that he has 2 sisters and that his parents live in Lachine, Canada, where his father practices medicine. The next day, they spoke on the phone for the first time in more than 5 months.
It was a very emotional moment. And then I even had to tell him that I couldn't even trust him 100%, that I wanted a package with family pictures in it, and with my birth certificate in it, and anything else he could think of. He said, okay, we'll send that to you. And then he said, do you remember your mom? And I said, no. And she was listening on the extension. And she burst into tears.
A few days later, the packet arrived. Pierre sat down with his fiancée, whom he met in San Diego, and a friend, to get reacquainted with his past.
It is strange to be told who you are and what you did. I'm someone again. And for quite a few months, I was nobody and nothing.
Next, the heartwarming reunion of a woman and her family. previous broadcast, we profiled the case of a woman named Lorene Roberts, who mysteriously vanished in 1962 and had no idea that she was one of the heirs to $1 million estate. In a happy turn of events, Lorene herself was watching television on the night of our broadcast and saw her own story of unsolved mysteries.
I'll be with you in just a minute, okay?
In 1951, Lorene Roberts was 16 years old and working as a waitress in Austin, Texas, when she fell in love.
Coffee, pie, and how about I take you for a whirl?
Lorene and the young serviceman were married just 10 days after they met. By 1956, the couple had 2 sons and a daughter, but the marriage was on the rocks. When her husband filed for divorce, Lorene was left to raise the children on her own.
Will you be in charge for a moment? Will you do that for me? All right, I gotta go now. I gotta go. Will you watch everything for me, okay?
Lorene tried. She worked and she tried to handle, her situations. And she loved her children very much. But that was just something she couldn't handle, and she seen she couldn't handle it. And she tried to get help from her husband, but no help.
Finally, Lorene felt she had no choice but to give her children up for adoption. The decision left Lorene shattered, and her emotional state grew increasingly fragile. Finally, in 1957, the stress became too great, and Lorene was admitted to a state mental facility.
Take care now. Okay, you too.
2 years later, while on furlough from the facility, Lorene paid a short visit to her sister Ruby. No one in the family ever heard from her again. In 1988, Lorene became one of the heirs to $1 million estate after the death of her mother. An extensive search was launched, but there was no sign of Lorene Roberts. When we aired the story, we never imagined that Lorene would call our telecenter and solve her own mystery. Lorene's family was overjoyed to learn that she was alive and well. Her sister Ruby immediately flew to Little Rock, Arkansas, where Lorene had been working as a housekeeper for just room and board. A few days later, Ruby brought Lorene back home to Austin, Texas, for a poignant reunion with the rest of her family.
It was unbelievable. I could hardly believe it, because I guess for so long we have searched and searched for her, and we couldn't find a lead.
I was so enthused, I cried, I laughed, I did everything.
Yes, it's nice to be back. They're real nice. They've always been. They're original people that are very darling people.
After we filmed this reunion, Lorene remained in Austin for 3 months. She received her $105,000 inheritance and has since returned to her home in Arkansas.
This is the wonderful person we look for here.
We're going to try to be happy and just do all the things we can to be together and love each other, and include her children and her grandchildren, and which I think will be real good for Lorene and all of us.
From time to time, the authorities contact us with fast-breaking cases, hoping that an urgent appeal to our viewers may help solve them. Our first special alert tonight is a tragic story of a woman who was kidnapped and later murdered by her husband. Joseph and Lois Krantz of Kalamazoo, Michigan, had been married for 14 years, none of them easy. Joseph had been in and out of prison since the mid-1970s for offenses ranging from burglary to fraud to forgery. On July 31st, 1992, he was released from jail after serving 2.5 months for embezzlement and parole violation. At the time, his wife Lois was pregnant with the couple's 3rd child, but she had recently contacted legal aid about seeking a divorce. On August 5th, less than a week after his release, Joseph Krantz showed up at Lois's apartment, brandishing a gun. A friend, Janice McCrae, was with Lois that morning.
She went into the bedrooms to get some stuff. We went into the living room. Me and the kids. While we were sitting there, Lois come running out of the bedroom yelling, oh no, just screaming.
Krantz forced his wife into a car and sped away. That night, he called his mother and told her that he had killed Lois and dumped her body near a lake about 30 miles from Kalamazoo. 3 days later, Lois Krantz's body was found in the general area her husband had described. She had been shot once in the head. On August 12, 1992, Lois Krantz was laid to rest. Her 2 daughters are now with relatives in a place where they will be safe from their father. Joseph Krantz has not been seen since he kidnapped his wife, and authorities believe he may now be in Florida. In our second special alert case, another family has been shadowed by a kidnapper. The victim is a 65-year-old woman who suffers from severe asthma and must have daily medication. Martha Doe Roberts and her husband Alan lived in Eads, Tennessee, 25 miles from Memphis. Alan last saw his wife when he left for work at 9:30 a.m. on August 7, 1992. When he returned later in the afternoon, his wife was gone. That night, Alan Roberts received a ransom call. A muffled male voice demanded $100,000 or threatened he would split open Martha's head. The kidnapper has made no further contact.
If Doe is released unharmed, I will meet any demand. I will do whatever is necessary to obtain her release.
Next week on Unsolved Mysteries, Senator Huey Long of Louisiana. In his day, the most fascinating character in American politics. But in 1935, Long died in a flurry of gunfire in his own state capital. History records that his assassin, Dr. Carl Weiss, was killed almost instantly by the senator's bodyguards. Today there is mounting evidence that Dr. Weiss may have been innocent and that the truth may have been shrouded by a cover-up. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you're about to see is not a news broadcast.
September 1989, Seattle, Washington. One of the largest fires in the city's history erupts at a lumber warehouse. Authorities soon attribute the blaze to an elusive master arsonist whose reign of destruction resulted in millions of dollars in damage and left at least 2 firefighters dead. 6 decades ago, Senator Huey Long of Louisiana was one of the most powerful politicians in America, a man many believed was destined to be president. But in 1935, Long was felled by an assassin's bullet. Now some researchers believe that the man thought to be Long's killer was in fact innocent, and that this may have been the first political assassination in America where the truth was concealed by a cover-up. In 1947, a 2-year-old girl was found badly beaten and abandoned in a field in Weed, California. Today, that little girl is a successful businesswoman who is still searching for her long-lost brother, whom she met only once, 45 years ago. Join me for these fascinating stories. Perhaps you may be able to help us solve a mystery.
Hi, Nicole, my big sister.
September 9th, 1989, Seattle, Washington. Just after 10 p.m., 20 engine companies responded to a 4-alarm blaze at the vacant Blackstock lumber warehouse. When the first company arrived, the blaze appeared to be controllable, isolated in one wing of the building. In a matter of minutes, however, it would become one of the largest fires in Seattle history. Matt Johnson and Bill Meredith were two of the first firefighters to get inside.
We decided to explore what appeared to be a second-story mezzanine type of area. While I was up there, there was a tremendous release of heat.
The roof had exploded into a 5,000-degree wall of flame. 2 stories below the inferno,
You fixed
Meredith
it.
and Johnson were overwhelmed by a burst of radiant heat.
Hi, Nicole.
They were in danger of being baked alive.
Hey, Steve, it worked, didn't it?
The lack of oxygen
Hey?
and tremendous
That's
heat.
what I needed, a bit second pair of
Bill Meredith went for help.
goggles.
I knew that I'd work when I found it this afternoon. I was like, she looks at the picture with that, she'll see where she's gone wrong. I told you the tree was wrong.
But there's that one, and I'm sure because I accidentally dropped on the floor. I'll have to have a look quick.
Oh dear.
Somehow
Oh no.
the fact that his body temperature had climbed to a point which normally means certain death.
My stomach grumbly.
Mm.
The next day, his partner Matt
Means
Johnson
you're
would be
hungry.
found dead in the rubble.
No, eat. Oh, done his cock crap up all day.
32 years old, married, the father of a 15-month-old son.
That it? No. That it? No. No, that definitely ain't it.
At
That's
first,
not
police
even
suspected
match.
the fire had been started accidentally by a vagrant trying to keep warm. But the burned-out warehouse had a different look to one veteran investigator of the Seattle Fire Department.
That
Dennis
don't match.
Fletcher had carried the
Ish.
distinctive signature of an elusive criminal
That
who had
doesn't
been tried
match.
for years. A criminal who may be the world's most sophisticated and deadly arsonist.
On a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 10 as far as his skills and his abilities go to bring a building down.
How is my Nicole
And the reason
doing?
you can't is because they generate so much heat and energy that a hose of water simply cannot overcome it.
Fowler first encountered the work of the arsonist in 1984 when Seattle's 40,000-square-foot carpet exchange warehouse burned to the ground in an astounding 19 minutes flat. The heat was so intense that it literally boiled concrete and vaporized steel beams.
The firefighters themselves said that it was hotter than they had ever experienced before. And these guys were in state-of-the-art firefighting protective clothing, and they're still outside, and they've got hose lines, and they can't get near the fire.
After the Blackstock lumber fire, the Seattle Fire Department took the unusual step of investigating a national scale. They analyzed dozens of fires across the United States and Canada and found at least 20 which mark of a person some call the king of arsonists. The Seattle Fire Department now believed they were dealing with the most sophisticated arsonist in the history of the United States. For firefighters, it was their worst nightmare come true. The blazes set by this arsonist defied logic, burning hotter and faster because of the oxygen in the water from the fire hoses. In essence, these arson fires were death traps. One factor above all others made the arsonist extremely difficult to track. He used a fuel of unknown
My
origin,
happy belated
which
Christmas to you,
left
Scratch
behind
Master.
absolutely no residue. It burned thousands of square feet in as little a time as 3 minutes. Generated temperatures which topped out between 5,000 and 7,000 degrees, 3 times higher than normal fire.
Tear my bloody leg.
Here you can see some silicates which have welled up out of the concrete from the high temperatures that we have in the thermal. As the data developed, it began to narrow the field as to what type of accelerant it might be and actually what could be happening inside these structures. And it was something that had never been tested before. And so we went through a series of tests involving various types of exothermic fuels, high temperature fuels that had never been burned in building tests.
On March 25th, 1990, after a year of intensive research, the Seattle Fire Department set a test fire at an empty shopping center in Puyallup, a Seattle suburb. The entire complex was destroyed in minutes.
The Puyallup test fire allowed us to narrow the field of potential accelerants down tremendously. Although it did not exactly duplicate what the arsonist is able to do, it reproduced close enough for us to know that this was the type of fuel that the arsonist is using, and this is what we were looking for.
The fuel, which the Seattle Fire Department has kept top secret, was an oddball mixture of several common ingredients, all readily available. But only someone with highly specialized knowledge would know how to put those ingredients together.
He knows the fuel and how much he needs to use to take a building down.
Overall square footage?
He may not be an engineer, but he certainly knows a lot about building construction. This person probably has no contact at all with the people who are going to burn the building, who actually are going to have the building burned. Once the fuel is delivered, anybody can light it.
The only one of the arsonist fires to generate eyewitnesses was one of the largest, the Blackstock lumber fire in Seattle.
I read about the Blackstock lumber fire in the paper, and I realized that I had been in the vicinity of the fire approximately 15 to 20 minutes before the alarm was called in. I was driving along the road the Blackstock lumber yard is located on. I noticed a vehicle, probably a 1970s vintage, early 80s Mercedes, coming out of a parking lot, and it just seemed out of place at the time and out of character for the neighborhood. It's that area is an industrial area, and at that time of night everything is closed down.
Another eyewitness said she saw a suspicious-looking man after the Blackstock fire was already in progress.
He paid absolutely no attention to this fire, basically just going about his business, and she found that to be unbelievable. It would appear that the fellow was possibly somebody who had actually ignited the fire, waited for a crowd to gather so they could blend in and make a casual exit from the area.
Under hypnosis, the eyewitnesses described two very different men. Neither one is considered a suspect, but authorities would like to question them both. The man driving the Mercedes was between 35 and 45 years old, with blonde, possibly graying hair, and fair skin. He had a mustache and beard and a receding hairline. The man seen leaving the fire was well-dressed, 6 feet tall, in his early or mid-30s. He had an athletic build, a dark complexion, well-groomed dark hair.
There
hasn't been a single one of these fires where we haven't had a large number of firefighters who have suffered anything from minor injuries to extensive injuries, very serious injuries. And in one of the Seattle fires, we had a firefighter who died. That's a murder, and that's why it's important to me.
To date, the arson fires have claimed the lives of at least 2 firefighters. While the search continues for the arsonist himself, authorities are analyzing insurance files from suspicious fires across the nation. When we return, nearly 60 years after the death of Senator Huey Long, his murder remains a subject of controversy. President John F. Kennedy, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Senator Robert Kennedy. Political assassinations have changed the course of recent history. However, an entire generation may not be aware that 3 decades earlier, another assassination rocked this country to its foundations. The man who was killed was named Huey Pierce Long, senator from the state of Louisiana, and a man who might very well have become president. To many, he was a spirited visionary, but to others, Huey Long was a dangerous radical.
We'll not destroy the profit system. We'll not destroy the capitalistic system. We won't destroy the Constitution of the United States. We won't destroy the Declaration of Independence. On the contrary, we'll make the Declaration of Independence read in the words it was written in, instead of having an interpretation of Wall Street.
Huey Long, known as the Kingfish, came to prominence in the 1920s. His down-home style contrasted sharply with a brilliant legal mind. He completed just 1 year of law school, yet by the age of 29, he had already argued 2 cases successfully before the United States Supreme Court. When he was 34, Long was elected governor of Louisiana. He was swept into office, thanks in part to his philosophy of redistributing American wealth.
No man must be allowed to have too much. No man must be allowed to have too little. Unless you limit the size of the big, it necessarily means that the small people must become more and more impoverished as time goes on.
At the age of 37, Huey Long was elected to the U.S. Senate. He was clearly a national figure. There was serious talk of a run for president in 1936. The very thought of Huey Long in the White House prompted opposition groups in Louisiana to arm themselves, hoping to shatter Long's power base in his home state. For the rich and powerful, Long was the devil incarnate. Many believed Huey Long was better dead than president.
Right.
In fact, few were convinced it was the only way to stop him.
I was elected railroad commissioner of Louisiana in 1918. And they tried to impeach me in 1920. When they failed to impeach me in 1920, they indicted me in 1921. And when I wiggled through that, I managed to become governor in 1928. And they impeached me in 1929.
Huey Long had a great compassion for a lot of people, but that compassion did not extend to people who crossed him. Once you crossed Huey Long, you had an enemy for life. People lost jobs, they lost businesses, they lost lands, they lost everything because of the vindictiveness of Huey Long.
Judge Henry Povey of St. Landry Parish was one of the many elected officials Long targeted for political destruction. By contrast, Povey's 29-year-old son-in-law, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss, was known to be apolitical. But it was Dr. Weiss, a respected Baton Rouge physician, whose name was to become inextricably linked to Huey Long's. On September 8, 1935, the 2 men would meet for the first and only time. It was a meeting that would change history.
Why I gotta keep doing this, and I don't want to hear anybody blaming Earl anymore either.
4 days earlier, Huey Long had returned to Louisiana from Washington, D.C. for a special state legislative session. Despite the threats against his life, Senator Long strode boldly between the State House chamber and Governor Oscar Allen's office, where history records that Dr. Carl Austin Weiss lay in wait.
Where did you drop it?
Down there. I'll get it because I know where it is.
Dr. Carl Austin Weiss was killed instantly, shot more than 60 times by Long's bodyguard. His .32 caliber pistol was found beside him. Huey Long died 30 hours later. He was just 42 years old. Long's funeral drew 100,000 mourners, most of them working people. No one could believe that a force of nature like the senator had been forever silenced. 5 days after Huey Long's funeral, an inquest seemed to establish Dr. Carl Austin Weiss as the assassin. Some speculated that his motive was to stop Huey Long from sabotaging the political career of Weiss's father, Judge Henry Potter. Weiss's own family, in a state of shock, had no choice but to accept the verdict. However, today, strong evidence has been amassed which indicates that Huey Long may have been killed accidentally, and that Dr. Weiss may have been innocent. On the day Huey Long was shot, the Weiss family gathered as usual for Sunday dinner at the home of Carl's father in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
How was your father, the judge?
He's fine.
In 1933, Carl Weiss had married Henry Pavy's daughter, Yvonne.
Down there.
In a special legislative session then in progress, Huey Long was trying to gerrymander Judge Pavy's judicial district out of existence.
No matter, I'll look for it.
Job's away, the livelihood's away, and it's coming right in your family. How can you not be upset?
Papa, you just don't understand. Long is cut from a different breed.
According to those present, it was Carl Weiss's father who was railing against Huey Long that day. Ironically, Dr. Weiss himself minimized Long's actions and tried to calm his father down.
Every morning at church, we've got a delightful dinner here. Let's not let this destroy it.
You're right about that, son.
Before the day was over, Dr. Weiss would be dead and his name vilified. He left behind his wife and a son, Carl Austin Weiss Jr., who was granted unsolved mysteries and a rare interview.
Naturally, most of what I know of my father is very secondhand, but understandably it's been one of my major life interests. Naturally, there's been a lot of interest focused on the minute-by-minute detail of my father's day, where he went, what he did, etc. He spent the afternoon at home, and then he left to visit the home of a man named Morgan, who was a patient of his, and I believe my father made a phone call from the Morgan home to make plans for the morning surgery. Thereafter, he left, and for reasons that I don't believe we'll ever know, he didn't go directly home, but stopped. And the rest is, as they say, history.
At the state capitol that evening, the career of Yvonne Weiss's father, Judge Henry Pavy, hung in the balance. House Bill number 1, the redistricting plan, was Huey Long's top priority.
Hold on.
How much longer am I have to wait for House Bill
Hold
number
on.
1 to pass?
Don't
We
take-
just got started. I am tired of Henry Pavy sitting on that judge's bench, and I thought y'all was gonna get him out tonight.
We just started working on this last night. We're getting resistance.
Y'all, you get resistance every bill you pass. That ain't no excuse no more.
We just gotta take our time.
Time?
You're pushing too hard.
I built this building faster than you boys are passing this bill. Now what's the deal here?
Huey, I don't think you understand. Look, we got a state constitution that tells us how to run things.
Let me tell you something about this state constitution. I am this state constitution.
Da, da,
You understand me?
da.
Now, do you have the votes to pass this bill or not?
No, I don't.
Well, then get back down on the floor with your little constitution. Never mind, I'll go back out on the floor.
fine.
You go right ahead. Don't you back talk me. I'll break you as fast as I made you.
At 9 p.m., the special session was still going strong. Huey Long trod his familiar territory, oblivious to the arrival of Dr. Weiss.
That's actually a
Some
Christmas
people
tree,
believe
that is.
Carl Weiss went to the Capitol, not to shoot Huey Long, but to plead his
It's an
father-in-law's
edge bit, innit?
case.
Carl Weiss
Ah, there it is.
position outside the governor's office.
No, you got to
He
find
was
a bit
not
with a
hidden
ball
outside
on it
the
as well.
governor's office. He was in plain view because he was approached by
Should
other
probably
people
this
who
up.
Probably.
were there, approached him, shook hands with him, talked
I'll
to
just
him.
do the main bits. Ah, it might be this one.
3 times, Weiss would approach Huey
Found
Long.
it.
3
Found
times,
it.
brushed aside.
That piece.
What, for the Christmas tree?
Yeah.
So it's near enough finished. What piece? Oh,
On
isn't
another
that bit?
task,
No, no, no,
Weiss
not
was
that.
a little bit more
I will
urgent.
find that
He
one, don't
told
worry.
Long that he really had to talk with him, and Long once again said he didn't have the time to talk to Weiss.
Senator Long, can I speak with you, please? Governor got Anderson to come over to our side.
Well, that's good, government.
Mr. Senator, can I just speak with you for a second?
I'm a little busy, son, but you just make yourself comfortable. Just a few minutes.
Senator Long, Senator Long, this is very important. Mr. Senator.
History
Are you looking for any bits with trees on now?
Yeah.
Blue haze, really, but we're uncertain as to what happened. But that is how the scene was set for this particular moment.
You know your jobs. You know what you got to do. Why do I have to keep coming telling you what to do? No.
At 9:20 p.m., Dr. Weiss would approach Huey Long for the 3rd and final time. The revisionist historians who are convinced that Carl Weiss did not kill Huey Long believe it happened like this.
All right. They're going to vote first thing in the morning, and it's the last time I'm doing your job for you. You understand me?
Mr. Long, I've got to talk to
Will
you.
you just leave me alone, you little pissant?
Yeah.
He shot me. He shot me.
Huey Long was taken to a nearby hospital. Despite his wounds, the Kingfish remained very much in charge.
You boys, you staying in here by me? You hear me?
Dick, okay, I won't fight. Let's go. Come on.
Huey Long had been briefed as to who the man was who was there, who they claimed had shot him. He had been given a lot of information. Somebody had to come up with a story as to exactly what happened there, and Huey Long felt that he was the man to do it.
No matter what happens to me, keep your mouth shut about the Capitol, you hear me? I'll do all the talking about that. Okay. All right, and you tell them other boys, I said to shut the hell up. I'll do the talking about that. All right.
All right, let's put him on the... Let's put him on the...
Huey Long was shot around 9:20. He was operating on sometime around 11 o'clock. They went inside, found out that the colon had been punctured in 2 places. That was a transverse colon that runs across the body. They sutured the colon in both places. They cleaned up the spillage. They sewed up Huey Long and then pronounced him cured, not really understanding what the consequences were. That was to dawn on them later on.
Too late, it was discovered that the surgeons had overlooked a serious wound to the senator's kidney. A day and a half later, on September 10th, 1935, Huey Long passed into history. It was the end of an era. Life in Louisiana, and possibly in the United States, would never be the same again. Huey Long, the Kingfish, was gone. At the official inquest, 8 days later, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss was named as Long's assassin. However, some remain unconvinced.
Most assassins leave a paper trail. They leave some hint as to what they did and why they did it. There was nothing like this. Carl Weiss was not a man who was preparing to shoot anybody. And at that dinner at noontime on September the 8th, he was a model of propriety, and really he was in complete control of himself. Carl Weiss was a father of a 3-month-old son. He was making provisions for the future. He spent a very normal son, and there was nothing to incline anybody to believe that he had this on his mind. I think it was altogether incomprehensible that he could have been the perpetrator of this crime.
No one disputes that Carl Weiss owned a gun, a .32 caliber pistol which he kept in the glove compartment of his car. However, Ed Reed believes that he has uncovered evidence that Huey Long was not shot by Carl Weiss's gun. The discrepancies can be traced back to the operating room. The official version makes no mention of a bullet being retrieved from Long's body. But Ed Reed has heard a conflicting story from one of the surgeons present.
All right, got a bullet here. It looks like about a .38 caliber. What do you say, Dr. Long? Yes, sir. All right.
During the operation, there was a .38 caliber bullet removed from Huey Long. This is significant because Carl Weiss was alleged to have been carrying a .32.
Very funny.
38s and 45s. So therefore, if a .38 was removed, and I believe it was, then that could not have
It's
come
not
from Carl
far
Weiss
off
for his gun,
finishing.
certainly.
According to Reed, a second bullet was found while Huey Long's body was being prepared for burial. The mortician in charge told Reed he was visited by Dr. Clarence Laurie, a close friend of Long's, who was one of the surgeons who had operated him.
Merle, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside for just a moment while I interrupt your work here for just a moment.
What are you planning to do, Clarence? Clarence, this is highly unethical.
Just
What
bear
is
with
it
me
that
for
you-
a moment, Merle. Just bear with me.
What are you looking for? My God. Is that a bullet?
As the mortician said, he rooted around and finally came up with a spent slug. And the slug was described to me by the mortician as being about as big as the first joint on your index finger.
I wanted to come out today, but
That we're talking about 32s, 38s, and 45s.
well, you just
that
made
would
myself
have
ill.
to be a 45, which
Hey,
would
Rude
have had
Bad.
to come from a bodyguard's gun, because that was the type of bullet that a lot of the bodyguards were shooting.
You know,
To further
Fox.
support his conclusions, Ed Reed believes it is highly
Shit.
unlikely that anybody other
Eh?
than one of the bodyguards could have gotten into the state capitol with a gun that night.
Everybody who had a
Oh, it's a
badge
bit of that,
working
innit?
for the state of Louisiana was up at the Capitol that night. The place just crawled with them. How in the world could Carl Weiss come past 100 security people and nobody would frisk him, or nobody would notice the outline of a 7.65 millimeter gun in a
Hope you had a lovely day. Oh, you're having a lovely
Within
day,
a half
sorry.
hour of the shooting, Dr. Weiss had been tentatively identified as Long's assailant. Weiss's brother Tom Ed and cousin Jim heard the rumors and proceeded to the Capitol. They still had no idea that Dr. Weiss had been
Oh,
killed.
for fucking hell.
Is this Carl's car? His bag's here. You have the keys? My dad's got a set at the house. Let's go get him.
Just got back from. I noticed you posted you go to gym.
Went back to the Capitol to try to find the car so that they could unlock it and drive it back home. The car had been moved.
I was just here a minute ago. I'm not going crazy. Let's go around back.
They found the car on another side of the Capitol building. When my Uncle Tom finally did open the car and go through the interior, he found that my father's instrument bag was open and in some disarray, whereas normally it would be packed in a very orderly fashion.
Somebody's gone through the bag. Carl would never leave his stuff like this.
Weiss's brother and cousin also discovered that the doctor's gun was missing from the glove compartment. To this day, no one can be sure who removed the gun from the car. However, Eloy Simon, the security guard at the state capitol that night, told Ed Reed that it was someone other than Carl Weiss.
One of the bodyguards, who is now dead, as all the rest of them are dead, he told me that he felt that that gun was a throwdown gun, that one of the bodyguards had gone out to the car that Carl Weiss had driven up in, had gotten
Well,
it,
I found loads of bits
and
of
had
tree.
thrown it next to the body.
Senator Norman, I just have a moment with you.
Reed believes his theory is bolstered by Weiss's own actions inside the capitol.
If Carl Weiss was actually at the state capitol to kill Huey Long, he had a perfect opportunity in the past.
Did you hear me again?
Huey Long had his back turned to Carl Weiss, it would have been very easy for Carl Weiss to shove his pistol up against Long's body, emptied out the magazine, and then made his escape. Because of the rumors that had been flying that there would be an attempt made on Huey Long's
That is
life
definitely.
that night. Because of that, fuses were very, very short. Something that happened that night, perhaps Carl Weiss hit Huey Long, perhaps he just moved too fast, and I think the bodyguards, who were without any training whatsoever in security, I think they overreacted. I think the bullets that entered Huey Long's
Time to
body
speed things
were the
along.
ones that came from the bodyguards' guns.
Ed Reed offers up what he believes is one final piece of evidence. By all accounts, when Huey Long was admitted to the hospital, his lip was bleeding.
Your lip, Huey? That's where he hit me.
Well, there's a big
Was
bit of
Senator
tree.
Long referring
So
to
that
his
one.
encounter with
Yeah.
Dr. Weiss?
Yeah.
According to an affidavit sworn to by one of those present, he most definitely was. In hindsight, there seems considerable doubt about who actually shot Huey Long. But at the time, it was essentially an open and shut case. Anyone who attempted to investigate further was stymied because all the official records, as well as Dr. Weiss's gun, disappeared
Might be a
a few
bit.
years after the inquest. Remained missing for more than half a century. In 1987, Professor James Stars, a forensic expert renowned for his ability to unearth missing evidence, began researching the case.
In trying to find the gun and the state police files, I decided that the police were the prime suspects. Starting from the top down, and I literally made a laundry list.
And that's all the
of
tree bits.
individuals with Lewis F.
So
Gear
you must have everything for the tree there. 'Cause that's all of them.
Had been head of the Criminal Bureau
Damn
of
'em all.
Investigation in Louisiana at the time of Huey Long's death. Gear died in 1966. In 1987, an investigator engaged by Professor Starr began an extensive search for Gear's will. When he found it, Dr. Starr's suspicions were confirmed.
There was a listing in the inventory of miscellaneous files listed as no value. Now, being a lawyer as well as a scientist, I realized that inventories of estates do not list items of no value. They certainly don't list them in this kind of mysterious way of miscellaneous files. And I said to myself, those are the state police files.
Another item in the will was not nearly so vague. Listed under Gear's personal effects was Carl Austin Weiss's gun.
The investigations of Dr. Stars led to the discovery that my father's handgun was in fact in existence, and its location was eventually traced to a safe deposit box in downtown New Orleans, where it had been in the possession of the daughter of the then chief of police.
Acting on a court order, a New Orleans sheriff opened the safe deposit box. After more than half a century, Dr. Carl Weiss's gun, the gun which allegedly killed Huey Long, had been located. With the gun were several unused .32 caliber bullets and one spent .32 slug. Initially, many people assumed this was the bullet that killed Huey Long. However, ballistics tests conducted by the Louisiana State Police showed that the slug had not come from Dr. Weiss's gun. The discovery of the alleged murder weapon only served to deepen the mystery. If the .32 slug had not been fired by Weiss's gun, then where did it come from, and why had it been kept with the gun? Some believe that the answer lay with the official state files, which were also recovered. However, the Louisiana State Police reviewed the files and determined there is nothing in them that changes the verdict of history.
It's my opinion that Dr. Weiss was the assassin in this case. We believe, from a law enforcement standpoint, that he had motive. We believe he had opportunity. And we believe he had the means to do the job. and we know that he was there.
The amount of time that may have elapsed since an occurrence really doesn't change one's desire to see the truth brought out, and I care probably more today than I did when I was a youngster about the truth concerning my father. If I were asked whether my father shot Huey Long,
I can't fucking see, I'm blind.
Yeah, that is.
Perhaps we will never completely resolve
You're
the
out with me.
Did Dr. Carl
Hey, I found a bit.
murder Huey Long? Or did Long's bodyguards go haywire, killing the man they should have protected? Update. A former superintendent of the Louisiana State Police has come forward with a startling admission that he believes Huey Long was killed by his own bodyguards. Colonel Francis Grevenberg claims he was told by 2 eyewitness state troopers that Dr. Carl Weiss was unarmed when Long was shot. The state troopers went on to tell a story that is nearly identical to historian Ed Reed's, that Long was accidentally killed by his own bodyguards who then planted a gun on Weiss. Grevenberg says he waited 40 years to come forward because the Louisiana legislature was packed with pro-Long politicians who would not believe him nor support an inquiry. The official position of the Louisiana State Police is that Dr. Weiss killed Huey Long. Next, the compelling story of a brother and sister separated more than 40 years ago.
Oh, that bit's right.
On a warm summer's morning in 1947, a housewife in Weed, California, took a shortcut home from the store through an overgrown field.
No.
Oh my God. Oh, you poor baby.
Hidden by the tall grass was a 2-year-old girl
Close.
who had been severely beaten and apparently abandoned.
Go get some help.
The
You're
toddler was taken to
close.
the nearest hospital and placed in intensive care. She had contusions on her head and face,
Let me see if I can find some more wood for you to
Traumatized and
insert.
suffering from shock, she was unable to tell authorities what had happened to her, or even who she was. The hospital staff began to call her Baby X. Today, the 2-year-old girl, known as Baby X, is a successful businesswoman and mother of 4 named Mary Jane Polk. Mary Jane has courageously overcome many of the hardships suffered during her childhood. However, she feels that the wounds cannot be completely healed until she finds her brother, whom she'd met only once 45 years ago. Tonight, Mary Jane tells her tragic story, in the hope that some in our audience can help.
Physically, she'll recover, but emotionally, I'm not so sure. She's been through an awful trauma.
In the hospital because they didn't know what to do with me. I was not able to communicate with the doctors and nurses, anybody that I came in contact with. I would assume I was very afraid, and very afraid that if I did speak or do anything, that I might be hurt again.
Police had absolutely no idea who Mary Jane was. They distributed her photograph to dozens of newspapers throughout Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. 2 weeks later, a witness came forward and identified Baby X as Mary Jane and told authorities that Mary Jane's mother was Lucille Medlin of
That's a bit of tree. That is.
Lucille Medlin was staying at a logging camp in Selma. She had recently given birth to her
Sure
third
it is.
child and was living with a new boyfriend.
Sheriff, Siskiyou County, you over here? Yes, I did, Sheriff. How can I help you? If you'd ask a couple of questions for me. First of all, have you ever seen this little girl before? Recognize her? Yes, I do. Excuse me, ma'am. Could I have
Yeah,
you
they finished
take
it.
this photograph for me, please?
When confronted with a
Just
photograph
carry
of
on.
a badly beaten daughter, Lucille Medley could no longer hide the truth.
6 minutes past 8.
My baby.
See, we already have 2 children. You have more than we need, so.
The boyfriend denied beating Mary Jane, but did admit that he had taken her to California, where he abandoned her.
Because there was going to be another child born, they decided that they needed to get rid of one of their children. That was their reasoning. They couldn't body train me. They couldn't, I was an incorrigible child.
Anthony, please come over and cuff this gentleman. Lucille, I didn't do nothing. If you'll come with us, please. We're in the automobile. Lucille.
The couple was arrested on charges of child abandonment and assault to commit murder.
Ghost Watchers! Yay!
Lucille was allowed to
Yes.
visit Mary Jane in the hospital.
Guilty. I'm one of them.
She brought along her
I'm
newborn
down
son
here.
Jimmy. It was the first and last time that Mary Jane would see her brother. 2 weeks later, Lucille and
Hey,
her
kitty.
boyfriend pleaded guilty to all charges and were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Mary Jane, her 3-year-old sister Leona, and her 4-week-old brother Jimmy became wards of the state and were eventually separated. Mary Jane initially went to live with her biological father and spent most of her childhood in foster homes. She married at 16. And today she and her husband own a successful restaurant in Placerville, California. They have 4 children and 2
Mitsubishi.
grandchildren. Several years ago, Mary Jane began searching for her missing brother and sister.
I better go there. No, does he fuck?
In 1991, she finally found her older sister Leona. And after more than 40 years apart, Mary Jane was unsure if she would be accepted.
I worried that she was going to reject me, and I was ready for that, and I was willing to accept it. It hasn't happened. It's good.
That bit.
Feels good.
None of these are there.
I'm
That bit.
proud of her. She's beautiful. She's got a good life. She's a good, nice person. Real nice.
I have 2 brothers by my adoptive parents, but I never had a sister, and so it was wonderful to meet with Mary.
It's a bit of wood. It's a nice bit of wood. Oh, there you go. I've done it. I've filled your hole and made a bigger one.
Mary Jane and Leona have joined forces in the search for their missing brother. He was born James Gilby on June 14, 1947, in either Selma or Grants Pass, Oregon.
Well, that didn't sound right.
He was adopted out of the Wairika County, California
No, it
hospital by a
didn't.
family from Oregon, and that his first name may have been changed to Donald.
Well, I feel that the missing link is Jimmy to make our family complete. And I would like to know where he is, what happened to him, what kind of a life he has, and like him to know that we're here. And that we're his sisters.
The night of our broadcast, Jimmy was not watching Unsolved Mysteries, but his adopted sister was. She immediately called her mother, who then contacted Jimmy. His name is now Donald Barrow, and he was just as anxious to meet his sisters as they were to meet him. 2 weeks after our broadcast, Donald and his family drove from their home in Fresno, California, to Mary's home in Placerville. Donald, Mary, and Leona had not seen each other in 45 years.
Oh, you think you're gonna make it? The one thing that I was concerned about is, was it gonna be okay? And I knew when I met him out of the car that it is okay. And I am so happy.
I just think that seeing him and knowing that he's had a good life, that was something that Mary and I both were concerned with.
Yes,
We wanted to make
that was
sure
it.
That he'd had a good life.
Found it.
He did makes us very happy.
I'm not very good at emotions, so I don't know how to explain all of them that were going through my mind, but There were a lot of them. And there still are. Now I'm gonna find out what it's like to be a baby brother.
And I still get to be the oldest sister.
See you later.
all know I'm the middle child.
Bye, everybody. Take care. Right.
On our next Unsolved Mysteries, in June of 1992, two brothers and their girlfriends left Los Angeles and journeyed to the beautiful beaches of Mexico.
No.
29-year-old Mario Amado was arrested and then found dead in a jail cell just 90 minutes later. His family and friends convinced he was murdered. Join me next time for this intriguing case, 3 other fascinating stories.
Nope.
Another
Nope.
edition
Nope.
of
Nope.
Unsolved
No.
Mysteries.
That's it, but that top piece ain't right.
No, it's not right.
No, but it is. It matches them 2 pieces.
It doesn't. No, because there's a black bit.
Right, just cut the tree down. Fucking thing.
I'm gonna call it in a minute
This
anyway.
program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you're about to see is not a news broadcast.
It began as a weekend of fun and sun at a seaside Mexican resort. But after a heated argument with his girlfriend, Mario Amado found himself arrested for disorderly conduct and tossed into jail. Less than 90 minutes later, Mario was dead, under the most suspicious of circumstances. September 1978, Catoosa, Oklahoma. Chief J.B. Hamby jumps into the middle of a robbery attempt and a shootout erupts. Moments later, Hamby dies as he recites the Lord's Prayer. Perhaps you can help catch his killer. A decade ago, the Texas oil boom made Ed Baker a millionaire. But in 1988, Baker's burned-out car was found in a remote rice field, and police said the body inside was Ed Baker's. Some believe it was suicide, but others are convinced it was murder. Join me tonight. You may be able to help solve a mystery. In Oklahoma, automobile license plates are distributed through privately owned franchises called tag agencies. These businesses keep little cash on hand. Nevertheless, they have become tantalizing targets for thieves who traffic in stolen cars. Just after 8 a.m. on September 1st, 1978, 2 men pulled up in front of the tag agency in Catoosa, Oklahoma, a suburb of Tulsa.
This a robbery? Get down on the ground, lady. Don't look at me. Come on!
We're being robbed. Police.
Come on! Move! Keep your head down. Lady, do not look at me, lady.
Don't hurt us. Please.
Don't look at me.
Chief, there's a robbery in progress at the Catoosa Tag
The only police officer in Catoosa was Chief J.B. Hamby, a 24-year veteran in law enforcement whose devotion to duty was well known.
JB was on call.
Right, I'm going to call it now. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you guys later on.
For those people that was on the wrong side of the law,
I'm nearly there.
become
I'm nearly
worst
there.
nightmare. He was relentless.
So I will see you guys later on. Thank you for joining. Lots of love. Bye everybody.